When you hear the phrase New Year's resolution, what comes to your mind? What experience do you have? Is it always a spectacular success or perhaps quite the opposite? If you'd like to learn more about New Year's resolutions, if they are good for you, if it's a good idea to make them, and how successful they are, stay tuned to find out. Hi, this is Bastian Antonovich, and on my 5-minute psychology channel I talk about psychology and ways in which you can make your life easier. Probably at this time of this year you are wondering whether it's a good idea to make New Year's resolutions, right? This is what people do on a yearly basis at the end of December or at the beginning of January. A lot of people do that. You can see that very clearly if you go on a regular basis to a gym. Usually January, February and March, the number of people there is so incredible, and you can see crowds of people joining gyms. But after a couple of weeks, they just stop because they realize that their New Year's resolution is fictional. And here is the first biggest problem when we make New Year's resolutions. First of all, they are too vague. If you make a New Year's resolution saying that you want to be fit, what does it mean to be fit? Well, we all know what it means, right? Well, wrong, because it all depends on your definition at this very moment, because perhaps right now for you to be fit means, well, to be able to run 10 flights of stairs. Or perhaps to be able to push some weights. But in a couple of weeks' time, you may forget what you had in mind when you were making this New Year's resolution. And this way, this resolution becomes a little bit more dissolved. It's not so clear-cut as it should be. So rather than making a vague New Year's resolution, if you have to do it, absolutely, then make sure it's a precise one. And rather than a New Year's resolution, it should change into a goal. Another mistake that we make is in the language in which we make this New Year's resolution. Very often, and I'm absolutely sure you have noticed that either in yourself or someone from your family or friends, that they phrase the New Year's resolution in the language of loss, in the negative language. So, for example, I won't tell lies, right? Negative, I will not tell lies. Or I will not overeat. Right? I will not, negative. Or I will lose weight. And even though linguistically there is no negation here, but this is the language of loss. Now, what it does to our mind is it makes us feel subconsciously that we are losing something. And this is a lost battle. If you are losing something, even if it's the excessive kilograms that you have, for your mind, this is a straight way towards failure. So rather than saying, I will not tell lies, try to rephrase it in a more positive language. Like, for example, I will tell the truth. All right? Or instead of saying, I will lose 20 kilograms, feel free to say, I will reach a weight of whatever it is, 65 kilograms, for instance. All right? This way you are making your chances so much better to reach your goal. And this is another way in which you change the New Year's resolution into a goal, into something that increases your chances of achieving it. All right? The next problem that people have with making New Year's resolution is that they are usually, these New Year's resolutions, not easy to measure, right? So when you say, I want to speak more fluently in French, all right, but what does it mean to speak more fluently in French? How are you going to check if you are going the right direction? What are the milestones you are going to have on your way? All right, so instead of making this New Year's resolution a vague one and not easy to measure, make sure that at the very beginning, when you are setting your goals, so that you know how you can check on the way as you go whether you are going the right direction. And how will you know that you have already achieved your goal? So instead of saying, I want to be more fluent in French, you can say, for example, I want to prepare to a B2 level certificate in French. all right? And that will be your milestone, you being prepared to this particular certificate. Not passing it, but being prepared to pass it, all right? That's a big difference indeed. The next problem that we have in New Year's resolutions is that they are not really time-bound, all right? Because when we make New Year's resolutions, very often we say next year. What is next year? It's 12 months, right? And it seems like a pretty defined period of time, but not when it comes to making plans. If you want to achieve a goal, then you have to make sure that there is a clear-cut deadline, like a particular day of the month in this year. Instead of saying next year I want to be better at speaking French, you can better say by the end of December 2022, 23, etc. I want to be prepared to pass the B2 certificate in French. This is very important. There needs to be a clear-cut deadline, and this is the difference between New Year's resolutions, which have a very vague date and the whole year to make it happen. This is why they fail, and this is why we fail at New Year's resolutions. And the goal which is more realistic, the goal should always have the deadline. And once you know the deadline, now these New Year's resolutions, they have another problem. They are very often unrealistic. So if your goal is to weigh 65 kilograms by the end of December next year, all right, so this is a deadline, right? You have a clear-cut deadline. But if currently your weight is 354 kilograms, then it means that probably this goal will be not realistic for you to achieve. What is a realistic goal? Now that will depend on you. Only you can tell what is realistic to you, all right? No one else in the world. But it's good to be as realistic as you can in setting your objectives and setting your goals. And this is another thing that distinguishes the New Year's resolutions, which are very often non-realistic, and goals which need to be realistic for you within the given time period. All right, so it's not only that the goal needs to be realistic, but the goal needs to be realistic within the date that you've given yourself, before the deadline you've set for yourself. Another reason why New Year's resolutions suck and why we fail at them is that very often while making New Year's resolutions, we do not realize that they come at a price, that you have to pay for them. Now, it's not necessarily about paying for them in money, in US dollars or in pounds. Sometimes we pay for achieving a goal with an effort, with a particular amount of time, or with us not being able to spend time with our friends, or maybe we will have to resign from some hobby that we have right now. All right, so these are all the prices that you may have to pay for achieving this goal. Now, when we make a New Year's resolutions, they don't take that into consideration. What you want to do is to change this New Year's resolution into a goal. And every time when you set a goal for yourself, you need to know how much you are going to pay for that, how much effort, how much time wasted perhaps, how much money as well. All right, so there it is. And finally, now that you know all the possible negative scenarios that can happen, all the price that you will have to perhaps pay for achieving this goal, compare it with all the benefits you can get from achieving this goal. All right, and then, only then, you will be able to decide if this goal is worth pursuing, because it does not have to be. Perhaps you will realize that getting to your perfect weight is just not worth it. It's too much effort, and it will save you a lot of disappointment. Or perhaps the other way around, you will realize how important it is for you to achieve this goal, how many extra benefits you're going to get from it, how positively it will change your life, how it will change your life for the better. All right? So if we were to summarize, New Year's resolutions, they don't work. They don't work. But what you can do is you can change your vague New Year's resolution into a goal that is realistic, that is time-bound, that is measurable, that is that comes with a price that you have to pay for it. And if it's still worth it, then do it. And this will increase your chances for success. Now, I hope that this way you will know better whether it's worth it for you to make your New Year's resolutions or not. If it is, stay tuned and keep coming back to my channel, because you will see another videos on how to increase your chances to achieve your goal. And I'll see you next time.